Well folks, welcome back to the old classic car channel. I think it's time for an update on the XJ8 saga. Now you may remember I ended the last episode moderately confident that changing the rear ABS sensor may have cured the error messages and the limp home mode that was occasionally kicking into action whenever I took the car down the road, and for a little time it did seem to improve things, but then once again the old error messages came back on the dash and the car went into limp home mode, and it has done it on several occasions now. Now there is a slight pattern to all this. It usually happens about 5 or 6 miles down the road into a fresh journey. It actually expired in that direction heading north after about 5 or 6 miles, conked out on separate days within just a few hundred yards of each other. So I thought, well, I'll go that way and see if that's any better. And on my way to an evening car meet, in theory, and it conked out after about 5 or 6 miles. Just limped to the side of the road, and I had to switch off, reset the codes, give it a couple of minutes, and I was able to drive back home successfully. When it's cold, there is no problem at all. Now these error messages are not uncommon on this era of Jaguar XJ8, the X308, and also the XK8s, which share many similarities under the bonnet with the saloon here. So it's all just a little bit frustrating, but it does seem to be a fairly common problem with Jaguar X308 of this particular era. And there are two common reasons for these problems. The first is low battery. Now I'm led to believe that the battery is a new battery, and it certainly looks like a new battery. It's certainly plenty enough for getting the engine to start, but if it's anything less than 100%, that can cause problems, and sometimes those problems are battery, and sometimes problems are the alternator, which obviously charges the battery, and there's like a voltage regulator built in. So thinking that maybe this alternator stroke charging problem may be a problem, I dug out that diagnostic tool that I introduced in the previous video, and I had it sat there on my lap with the live voltages running, and it'll actually monitor the voltage output of the alternator as you sit there with it running. And I found that the more accessories that I switched on, so headlights on main beam, heated rear window, the front screen, the heater motor blower, all these kind of things, that really did load it up, and the figures did start to tumble. And the lowest I managed to get the voltage output reading to was about 11.8 volts. So effectively that is discharging the battery, and if you were driving in winter and you had the front and rear screens on, headlights on, that kind of thing, which isn't unknown, and the heater blower, it would actually be discharging the battery. So I've got a feeling the alternator may be a little bit on the weak side. So I have actually bought a brand new alternator for it. It's a Denso, I think that's the original equipment, in fact, an original spec Denso alternator, so that's ready to go on, and the belt as well. There's no point putting the old belt back on. Then I left it a few days, and I thought, well, I'll just put the meter on when we got back from a little mini break, and I put it on and I did the same tests again, the lights, the front and rear screen heating on, all that kind of thing, and it was still holding up. It was still holding sort of mid to late 13 volts, and that got me thinking, okay, well maybe the alternator's okay, or maybe it's just an intermittent fault with the alternator, because like I say, when I did this test just a couple of weeks ago, I could get it down to 11.8, the live reading on the voltmeter test, so which is clearly substandard. So is there an intermittent fault somewhere? Who knows, but there is a new alternator, so as the car has been, obviously it's got a few years under its wheels now, maybe it's time just to change the alternator, so I think we'll do that anyway, just as a bit of, hopefully building in a little bit of reliability to it going forward. And the other potential problem, which is something to do with the electrics, are earthing. Now, as you may remember, I changed the earth lead that was under the bonnet at the front, but apparently there is also an earth lead underneath the car itself. So one of the next things I'm going to do is put it up on the ramps and just have a look, see if the main earth lead, because the one under the bonnet had deteriorated quite noticeably, and if the one underneath is anything like the same condition, then that could really be a problem. Researching online, the other big problem that some of these cars have is with the ABS module. Now on the XJ, it is situated on the near side front corner under the bonnet on the inner wing. and there are two soldered connections within this sealed unit, and they are known to break up, and you actually sort of get like a very slight intermittent contact there, and that is enough to throw the electronics out, and that will throw up the traction control, the gearbox fault message, and also put it into limp home mode, which is what I'm getting. So that is another possible thing to look into if we don't get too far with this. But yeah, it's all been just a little bit frustrating. Just while I'm sort of talking about this ABS module and some of the problems that they can throw up, going back to some of the test runs that we've done recently, like I say, it often conks out or throws up these error messages and goes into limp home mode after about 5 or 6 miles consistently. So you're driving along, then slow down for traffic lights, that kind of thing, and it usually happens when you're going quite slowly, i.e. pulling up to traffic lights or going round the roundabout and preparing to pull away. And I can't help thinking that if it keeps happening after the same kind of distance of a journey, 5-6 miles in this case, then maybe it is something temperature related. That's certainly something possible. I mean, I've had that with old cars in the past where things pack up, like the ignition coil or the condenser, that kind of thing, packs up when it gets hot. But when it's cold, everything is hunky-dory. The other day I took it out in the evening, I charged it. The only thing I did differently is I charged the battery up on the home charger here for about 2 days to make sure it was fully topped up. Then I took it for a run down the lane, stop start, try and get the heat build up, and it was fine. I couldn't make it go wrong. It was really strange. It was quite a warm evening, not as warm as it is now, but it was a warm evening, and I couldn't make it throw up the error messages, and I thought I was maybe on the home straight with this, but then I've tried to take it out since then, and I've had these problems that I've just been describing. Well, it's only been running about 5 minutes. As soon as I try to drive it up the ramps, we get the following: ASC not available, engine failsafe mode, gearbox fault. Interesting, it's not showing the ABS error message. That's something I wanted to check. So maybe it's not the ABS module, and maybe it is the battery charge. Oh, just switched it off, switch it back on again. No errors, at least for the time being.
Kind of like mounted that little wood over there. Kind of like ramped it, you know what I mean?
So let's go and have a look at this earth lead. So I'm just have to shimmy under here slightly. I do have a torch. Now, where are we? I think it comes off the bell housing or somewhere. Oh, yeah, this isn't very comfortable. Oh, there we go. Right, if I can just adjust the camera. Okay, so there it is. So that's the underbody earth lead. So it's just behind the offside front wheel, really. So that's held on with a tiny bolt there, and it goes off, I think, to the bell housing. I can't quite see from here. Let's just have a look. Oops. This lead, it feels, oops, Now it just feels a little bit brittle, like the one on the bonnet that I ended up replacing. So I think what we'll do, I'll have a bit of a route round, see if we can find a better lead, either to replace that or maybe even add it in as a bit of a belt and braces approach, but it does feel a little bit crunchy, which isn't ideal. But it does get all the weather under here, so it's not exactly surprising. Alright, well, I've had a bit of a dig around in the garage. I found this. Let's just go in the shade over here. So, this is an old earth lead off what? I do not know. But having had a quick peek at the one under the car under there, it doesn't strike me as being particularly good at all. It feels quite crumbly, and I reckon if you just sort of bent it a little bit, it would probably start breaking up. So I'll probably take it off and either replace it with this. I've cleaned up the ends of it, so I'll either replace it with this, or this will supplement the one that's already fitted. So we've actually got two rather than one. You can never have too many earths. Either way, even if it's not causing the particular problems I'm getting at the moment, it needs changing, so I think we'll crack on with that. Oh, there it is from another angle. Don't know if that's focusing, but you get the idea, hopefully. The problem is it runs quite close to the part of the exhaust here, this big rusty thing here. So I don't think I'll be able to use that lead that I dug out because the insulation on it would just melt. So I think for now we'll just try and get this off and give it a bit of a clean up. What fun. I was able to get both bolts off either end of the earth lead, but handily you can't get the long bolt out from the bell housing at that end of the earth lead because the catalytic converter prevents you from pulling the bolt out all the way. So all I can do, at least with the existing lead, is just try and clean the ends up as best I can in situ. The body end of the lead, where there's like a 10mm bolt into the chassis, I can get that end off okay, so I can clean that up reasonably well from underneath the car, but I can't actually get the lead off, so all I can do is clean it up, refit it, and then look at what options I've got for adding to it with a second earth lead somewhere from the engine or the gearbox to somewhere on the chassis. So that's a bit of a shame, but I'm not taking the exhaust off just to get one bolt out from the end of the existing earth lead. That isn't going to happen. Right, I'm up to about plan D now. I ended up making up a new lead. I found this old battery cable and I put a new eyelet on the end here, and that is beefy enough for that to pass through like so. So all I need to do now is fit that. Like I say, I do have to watch that this passes somewhere close to the exhaust, so I'm going to put some insulation stuff on that just to protect it once it's already been fitted. Yeah. Right, well, that has got the second new earth lead fitted underneath. Lying on gravel isn't the best, but well, there you go. I could have dug out a bit of cardboard, but once you start something, you don't really want to break off. So anyway, the original earth lead is still in place. I cleaned up the connections on the end, either end of that. On the body side, I fitted the new earth lead to the same body earth mounting as with the existing lead, and the end of the new lead I put to the next bell housing bolt along from the one used by the original earth lead. I hope that makes sense, but it does to me anyway. So now we have original earth lead plus a brand new one, and I've insulated the new one as it passes in the vicinity of the catalytic converter. I insulate it with some of this special exhaust insulation stuff. This is in it like a wrap that you can put on like downpipes and on manifolds to keep the heat in, and equally it'll keep the heat out. So this is good if you want to insulate something that you don't want getting too hot, and in my case I didn't want the new earth lead to get particularly warm, so that is why that is there. Grubby thumbprints everywhere, so at least that's one job ticked off. It may not cause, or cure rather, the issues that I've been getting, but looking at the state of the original earth lead, it was a job that would have needed doing sooner or later. So that's one ticked off the list, and no doubt there'll be other jobs to do. Like I say, possibly the ABS module down the other side there. But like I say, when the error messages come up, it doesn't actually flag up an ABS error message, nor does the ABS light come on the dash. So rather than jump into that when I might not need to, I'll give it another test run, see if the changing the earth and improving the earthing has made any difference whatsoever, and if it hasn't, well, then it's the alternator. Now whether I do the alternator, whether I get someone to do it who's more used to this kind of thing, I'm not quite sure. It's buried down, we can't even see it, it's down there somewhere. You can't really see it. Some people lift out the electric fans, they slide up out of the way, and if you take off this air box here, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to get in, but it's still not ideal. Other people take off the front wheel and part of the inner lining under there and go in that way. And yeah, so there's different ways to do it, but I'll have a think about that on another day. Had it running for about 10 minutes, went to move it. And there you go, the engine's hunting, it's in limp home mode, failsafe engine mode, gearbox fault, track not available, ASC not available, but no ABS light. So the earth lead made apparently no difference at all. And if I switch it off and leave it for 15 seconds or so, then switch it back on, it sounds fine again. It's all very, very confusing. So my ideas of going for another test run this evening have been knocked on the head. I mean, that earth lead did need replacing or supplementing, so it wasn't a wasted evening. And this is the ABS module, but I'm not getting an ABS error message in particular. And it does get very hot down here. And I can't help thinking that that's not good for this a little electronic box of tricks. So my feeling is that something in the charging system might not be doing the correct job. I've had the diagnostic thing on it, measuring the voltage, the live voltage. Most of the time it shows sort of high 13 volts, that kind of thing, which you'd think might be okay, but if I try and recreate, say, a winter's day with having the lights on, the heated windows, you know, everything, basically everything running, fog lights, main beam, that kind of thing, I did find it was possible to get it down to about 11.8 volts with the engine running at idle, so basically discharging. So I've got a feeling there was a gremlin somewhere in the alternator, perhaps within the voltage regulation, that kind of thing. And again, they are so temperamental, the electrics have got to be so A1 that anything less than that and you can have problems. And it would seem to fit in that when you put a fully recharged battery in, it runs okay for a bit until maybe the battery is just dropping down a little bit, just maybe 98% or 96%. And then that's when you can start having a few little problems. Charge it fully up again and it'll be okay for a little bit, for 1 or 2 trips out. And that seems to be the pattern. And again, the fact that I can drive it back after having a problem by keeping the revs spinning quite high and really encouraging the alternator to throw out some charge kind of suggests to me that maybe the alternator isn't doing its job. So I have got a new alternator in the back. Now the alternator is way down here somewhere, down under the front of the engine, and if you saw the first video that I did with the Jaguar when we first went to look at it, I was under the impression that it actually had a new alternator on it. I also saw under the impression it had a new battery on it. Battery, not sure. The alternator, that is not a new alternator. So I have actually bought one in, which is like a Denso, I think, which is the original equipment for one of these. And I've been sort of umming and ahhing whether I should have a go at changing it, because it is a bit of a pig to get at. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to nip out to a garage and just have a quick chat with them. I'm not going to take this, I'm just going to go and have a word with them, see how booked up they are, and take it from there, see if it's something they could fit in fairly soon. Usually I take it to another garage and they do odd jobs for me, but when the cam belt snapped on the MX-5, from speaking to them, it sounded like they were fully booked up with work, sort of weeks in advance almost, because they do MOTs and things as well. So I'm going to nip over in a few minutes to this other garage, have a chat with them and just see if this is something they can fit in, hopefully within the next few days, and I think we'll just try and get it done. And also I've got some new suspension bushes. The upper inner wishbone bushes look pretty tired on this as well, so if they can fit it in, I will get them to do that as well. So yeah, I think I'll just finish off my brew and then probably fire up the standard, give that a run. It hasn't run for a while, and we'll nip over to this other garage and just see what the story is over there and see if they can fit in doing these little jobs here on the XJ8. Although it's a very different car, some of the jobs that I'm actually having to contemplate doing on the Jaguar are very similar to those that I did here on the little standard 8 when we first got that, because this also needed a little bit of recommissioning, and it also wasn't charging the battery properly. Fortunately on this one at least, putting a fresh dynamo on and also the voltage regulator was a whole sight easier. The access on whole cars like this is just unparalleled. It just makes life so much easier when you can actually see and get at things. But yeah, we will fire this one up, take it for a little airing, get some heat around everything, and go and talk Jaguars with this little garage, and we'll see if they're up for doing the job. And of course, this was the whole idea of buying the standard those years ago, is to be able to use it any time really, and not be too precious about things. So let's see if it'll go. Right, so yes, we'll need a bit of choke. I've put a little squirt of fuel in the carb just because it just helps it a little bit. Must be a blockage somewhere in there, but not to worry. Ignition on, foot on the throttle, that also seems to help. Pull start on these. Nearly. Try again. There we go, charge light goes out. Because dynamos don't tend to charge at idle, only when you've got revs. So, there we go. If we push the choke in a little bit, it might just slow down the idle enough for the ignition light. There we go, there's the ignition light. There we go. So that's working correctly, unlike the Jaguar. The Jaguar has an alternator, and they charge all the time. But dynamos do not. Yeah, it's a bit of a soggy old day, unfortunately. Something tells me I need to tighten up that wiper. Let's try again. There we go. That's better. The trusty 1/4 inch. What brand is this one? A Brenco British made spanners. I realised the other day that I haven't done any nerding on old spanners recently, and this one is neat because whoever it was, perhaps an apprentice with his first set of tools, has actually stamped up this one with his name, R. Cotton, I think it says there. So that's quite neat. I always like to keep, yeah, I always put RC on this end as well, and R Cotton on that end. So yeah, I always like to keep a 1/4 inch spanner to hand because you can fix many things with one of those. Yeah, definitely essential for the toolkit of any 1950s car. Right, let's get off. Quick 3-point turn. That's a good thing about little cars like this. They're nice and easy to park and manoeuvre. When they break down, they're nice and light to push to the side of the road as well. So yeah, there's lots to be said for running a little car as opposed to something big. Opening quarter lights are great too to stop the windows steaming up. Who needs air conditioning? Well, okay, we're booked in. It's going to be sort of 2 and a bit weeks, something like that, which is it's a bit longer because that's getting very, very close to this Jaguar day. I wonder what that is under the sheet over there. It doesn't belong to the garage, but the shape looks a bit Ford Popish to me. So what's hiding under there, I wonder? It'd be very tempting to have a look at the wheel, but I'm fairly certain that's a Ford Pop. Well, there we go, back again. So that's the Jag, booked in for about 2.5 weeks time now. If I find that I've got a bit of time and the weather is agreeable, unlike today, then I might still have a go at doing the alternator myself, but at least I've got a slot booked in. If I do it myself, then obviously I'll just cancel the appointment, but yeah, at least I've got that as a fallback plan now. Well, folks, it is the following day, and yes, things are afoot, things are happening, because overnight I decided how hard can it be to change the alternator on an X308 Jaguar. Well, the answer is it's a bit of a fiddle, but having read up on this many times and I've put it off for quite a long time, I thought, well, at least if nothing else, I'll jack it up, take the wheel off, because this appears to be the accepted way in, and just have a bit of a look around. Let me just get my torch. So I've pulled back the wheel arch liner, as you can see there, and there is the alternator. It's held on with a nut and bolt at the bottom, which you might just be able to see, possibly, and also there's a captive bolt there which is almost out. Now that took me to get that bolt moved, and that far it's almost out, but it's not quite out. That must have taken me at least an hour, maybe longer than that. It's only 10mm and it's probably been there 20 years, so I had visions of it snapping off, and I have actually seen a photo of someone doing this exact same job and snapping off that bolt. Bolt I'm talking about is that one down there. You can just about see it, hopefully. So yeah, that was a bit of a fight, and only being 10mm, it was so easy to potentially snap it. So to try and avoid that, well, you make sure you have really good fitting sockets. This is a really small little ratchet. I didn't think this would do it, so I actually had to start it on a slightly larger one of these. I think it was this one, on a slightly larger socket, just to get it to move. But before doing any of that, I dug out this thing. Now this is actually Dad's, but it's got me out of trouble on several occasions, a hot air gun, because obviously you don't want to be waving a bare flame like a blow lamp down there, because there are lots of things to set fire to. But this allows you to direct a surprising amount of heat wherever you want it without the risk associated with an open flame. And this has got me out of trouble on several occasions, and I thought this may just come in handy today. So repeatedly throughout this process I heated up. Now it's a bit awkward to see, but the bolt goes into here. You can probably just about see that. So there's a thread in there, and I repeatedly heated that up, doused it with WD-40 once I'd got a little bit of a gap here, but I suspect this is probably Loctited in to stop it working free, and that explains why it was so tight. Even once it was on the move, it was so tight to turn, and I was terrified of snapping this or rounding off the head of the bolt, either of which would have been pretty annoying. So yeah, regular heatings up of the housing here allowed me to, you're only getting a tiny amount of a turn on this every go, but now it is almost out. I've left it where it is just for now, but at least I know it won't take anything to get it out. The drive belt is already off. I also took off the air box, which sits kind of here, just to give me, obviously you need the space to get in there. Without taking that off, you weren't going anywhere, and it's just held in. It's a push fits. The base, the bottom of this, which I didn't realise at first, the bottom of that is just a push fit into these two rubber bungs here. So once you've taken the top off and disconnected this bit of gubbins here, this literally, the bottom part of the bin that the air filter sits in, it just pulls out and it goes through there. So there's like a bit of an air intake as well, which you just pull it through this flexible rubber thingy on the inner wing here. So that came off out of the way. So we're midway through at the moment. Obviously I've disconnected the battery as well. The car is on a stand, before you ask. The jack is just there, just as sort of belt and braces, so that's all good, because if someone wants to change the alternator on their XJ8, on the X308 version as we have here, then there may just be a few little nuggets of information which help to just ease the job. So the next thing I need to do, where's that torch gone? Where's it gone? There it is. Right. Oops. Right, so the next thing is to get that long bolt that runs fore and aft out, which secures the alternator at the bottom. It's still got the original Jag alternator, so as you can see, this hasn't been changed in the last few weeks. No siree. So yeah, anyway, enough of that. So I'm going to crack on with that while the weather's nice and try and see if we can get that bottom nut and bolt moving as well. And then we've got to try and disconnect the connectors on the back, and then hopefully we can jimmy this thing out and get it out. It's a bit of a tight fit. Some people take the electric fan assembly out and go up through the top, but quite a few people seem to recommend that you can actually get through here once you've pulled the arch liner back and out of the way. So I think that is the option that I'll be going with today. But yeah, I'm not going to film all this, but I just thought I'd film a little bit of an update in the middle of the job, just to show what we're getting up to. But yeah, it's been a bit of a fight so far. Okay, where are we up to? Right, well, the bottom nut and bolt have come out nice and easy. Just a nice simple nut and bolt all the way through. A couple of minutes and that was off. The next battle was the electrical plug-in connector on the back. There are two connectors, and it's probably easy to go and have a look at the new alternator to try and explain what it is I'm talking about. Here's the new alternator. So on the back you've got this, there's a nut, there's a connector on here held on with a 12mm nut. That's nice and easy to get off. It's under like a little rubber boot that you pull back. There's like a plug-in connector in here, and you have to squeeze in one side of it and then sort of pull it out at the same time. If it's not been off for a few years, it can put up a bit of a fight, and it did. Basically the side nearest the engine block, you have to squeeze it in, and then there's little ears on here on the connector that goes on there, so you have to squeeze in this side of the plug and then pull on some little ears at the same time, and it does come off. But that was a bit of a fight. So the next thing to do now, as both of the bolts are off, I think I just need to try and crowbar it out. Obviously the top is free, and the bottom, it's just like that. If you can imagine the alternator sitting in the middle of there, I've taken the bolt off that goes between these two bits horizontally. So I just need to jemmy this out, but there is a bushing apparently, just to make life exciting. So I'll report back once I've actually freed off the alternator completely, and hopefully I've been able to get it through here. Well, it took a gentle bit of crowbarring between the alternator and the bracket behind it which stays on the block. Wow. There we go. So all I need to do now is get through this gap, and then reassembly is the reverse of removal, as it says in all the best Haynes manuals. Right, well, there we go. The original Jaguar branded Denso made alternator, and that's not been off in many a year, if ever. Whoa, what a fight to get that off. I try to think what it would have cost to do this at the garage, you know, because even if they're only charging £50 or £60 an hour, and it could easily be more than that, it soon adds up. Whew, blimey. I mean, these can be refurbished, so I won't actually chuck it away. I'll just file it on the shelf. So the only thing left to do before, the only thing apparently you have to do is where the bracket is. You can see the two ears of the bracket on the left. There is a bushing, and it's just sticking out a little bit into the space where the alternator goes, and apparently you have to push that back in just 1/8 of an inch or so, just so that the replacement alternator can slide on. So we'll have a look at doing that. Joy. Right, so I just had to rig something up to push the bush just into the left hand part. Hope you can see that. But basically the nut in the centre on that threaded piece is pushing the old socket to the left of it to the left when I tighten it up going that way, and that is just pushing the bush back into the aluminium housing, just about 1/8 of an inch, if that, and it appears to have pushed in, I hope. So that should make it a bit easier to put the new alternator on. So yeah, that took a little bit of a while just to find a suitable bolt, nuts and washers to do the job, but I think that'll probably do. So I think soon we will have a go at putting the new alternator onto the car. Yeah, what a job. Okay, well, the alternator is loosely in place. Bottom bolt is back in. I'm just having a go at the top bolt now. This is the original bolt, and if you look carefully, the threads are a bit mullered on the end there, and I don't really want to just go winding it in. I did think of cutting it down back to the good bit of thread, but I thought I'd have a quick look just in case. And what should I find in the new box of bolts that I rescued only a few days ago? Well, this. What are the chances of that? Exactly the same metric fitting. So, all being well, I'll be able to use this. So already, those boxes of nuts and bolts that we retrieved in the Dodge pickup very, very recently have already been a bit of a lifesaver. So that's quite a result. All we've got to do is actually fit it now. Right, well, the alternator is back on, as is the new belt. And this appears to be tensioned up okay. The only problem I've got now is that while I was faffing around feeding in the lengthy serpentine belt round the front here, this little plastic pipe which goes into the radiator snapped when I accidentally leant against it. So I'm going to have to figure out a way of connecting that into there. Plastic. That's all I'll have to do for now. I was very, very cautious tightening those up. I'll never recommend using proper Jubilee clips onto a plastic outlet on the radiator on this end on the header tank, but I didn't really have much choice. So that should do for now. At least I can fit the airbox and all that gubbins over the other side back on, double check everything, and then hopefully fire it up and just see if fitting this other alternator makes any difference whatsoever, but the way I see it, this one was looking pretty old. So actually replacing it isn't necessarily a bad idea. Everything is back together under the bonnet. So just running it up just to make sure everything's behaving. Make sure that my improvised hose isn't leaking, or anything else for that matter. So we've got the diagnostics running at the moment just to sort of monitor the live voltage. So idle, maximum's 14.22, minimum 13.7. We're averaging probably just over 14 idle, so that's okay. So obviously I don't know how charged up the battery is at the moment, so I think what we'll do tonight is, as it's getting a bit late, we'll put the battery on charge that's in the boot, so then we know we're starting from a known good starting point, and then it's just a case of testing things and seeing what happens. And in the meantime, this evening I'll have a look, see if I can buy another one of those joyous plastic pipes so I can put it back to how it should be. Everything appears to be back together. Anyway, I think for now we'll just tidy up a little bit and go and have something to eat. Well, okay folks, update time. We are 2 days on from the alternator swap. Yesterday I thought, well, we'll give this a bit of a test run and see how we go. So I put the freshly recharged battery back on. This is still the second battery. This is one I've borrowed, which apparently is a good battery, but is it? It's hard to say. But anyway, we put it back on, fully charged up, and I took it out for a bit of a spin. I did a mixture of driving round lanes, fast roads, stop start, switched it off, came back, and did nearly 40 miles. No problems at all yesterday morning. So that all seemed very, very promising. Several times I checked the diagnostic tester and there were no errors showing up anywhere at all. No faults found, it said on the engine control module and the transmission control module. Those are the main ones that seem to have problems, if there are going to be any problems. So no errors showing. Yesterday evening I thought I'll give it another test run, and within a circular route of about 8 miles I broke down 3 times with various error codes coming up. So clearly changing the alternator has not made any difference whatsoever, buried down there somewhere. So that is, well, I was really hoping that will probably do the job, but clearly not. This is becoming a little bit of a test of patience. With old cars you have to be very patient because they can be quite infuriating at times, and I fully expected a few problems with this one just to get it back on the road. But you know, the number of times I've broken down and coasted to a halt at the side of the road in various situations, we're well into double figures now, and it's getting a little bit boring. So I think today I'm going to remove some of these panels across here and just double check some of the connections over on this thing here, which is the throttle body. There are 2 connections on here. One of the error messages I was getting yesterday related to the pedal position sensor, I think. I've even started keeping a log now of test drives and various breakdowns just to see if there's any pattern forming. The only pattern I can see so far is, with this battery and the battery that was on the car, is that when I charge it up fully overnight for a day or 2 in the garage on a regular battery charger, the next time I take the car out it seems to behave, and that was the case yesterday. Nearly 40 miles in the morning and there were no problems at all. Come the evening, maybe when the battery had just depleted a little bit perhaps, because I did run with headlights on in the morning just to see if that would actually cause a problem. Then in the evening it just went back to its same old ways again, the same old tricks. So is it the battery? Could this second battery be good enough for 99% of applications but not quite be up to spec, holding up enough to keep this car reliable? Because like I say, in the morning it drove perfectly well. I mean, there's still a bit of a creaking sound coming from down here, but I'm not too worried about that. The priority at the moment It's just to try and make it reliable, and that is a task, a target that I'm singularly failing at the moment. So yeah, I think today we will just spend a bit of time checking out some of the connections and so on under the bonnet here. This is an important one. On the there's like a false bulkhead here, and there's a big electrical connector in there, and I've seen photos of those looking very corroded, and that can cause all manner of problems like those that I'm seeing. But this looks, on the face of it, it all looks nice and clean, but we'll probably have a go at that one as well. So that is the task for the next hour or so. Take all these bits of plastic off and just have a bit of a delve into some of the wiring connectors. At least this is nice and easy to get at. It doesn't involve getting underneath the car, pulling the wheel off, that kind of thing, like it did when I was changing the alternator. So anyway, I'll report back once I've done a bit more. Go over there. Not sure if anything's holding this in. Nope. Right. So here we have this. Apparently there's the throttle body, and there are many connectors. This one has a slight crack in it. Offhand I'm not quite sure which is which, but I do have some contact cleaner in the garage, so I think the sensible thing to do would be to go around and just clean them up. I did do the beauty of the internet is that there is so much information out there, because lots of other people have suffered the misery of trying to keep these old cars on the road. There is the throttle body, and if it wasn't so windy I'd be able to look at the diagram. Right, so that is like that. Now the pedal sensor is this one down there. I don't know if you can see that. That is the pedal position sensor, that one down there. So I think we'll clean that one up, and basically anywhere else where I can see an electrical connector, we'll give it a bit of a clean up, give it a bit of a dousing in the contact cleaner, which apparently is good for these things. Just generally clean things, give things a wiggle, and see if it makes any difference. Well, one thing going right today is the replacement pipe. The pipe that snapped, this one here, which I temporarily replaced with this bit of heater hose here. There's a replacement one in there, so that's good, so that can be fitted sometime. Well, the pedal sensor is just drying. There it is down there, I believe. I hope that's the right one. The throttle position sensor is just down the other side, so if you're planning on doing this, this is where you go. I think it's this one. I hope it's that one. That's just drying off as well, but the way I see it is any connector can only benefit from being cleaned. And I also did the one over here on the MAF, so they can all be drying off. This is the big electrical connection on the false bulkhead. On the face of it, it doesn't look too bad, but that washer looks a little bit grubby. So the battery is disconnected, by the way. I don't see any harm afterwards. Once I've put this back together, I don't see any harm in taking this apart and just sanding up those connectors. I've seen photos of far worse connectors than that, but really it's just a case of doing everything you can think of just to try and build in a little bit of reliability. The only thing we haven't really investigated is the ABS module over there. Sometimes they can throw up similar error messages, but I'm not actually getting an ABS error message. It's just the traction control, gearbox fault, engine failsafe mode, blah blah blah. So we just keep picking off these things one by one, and hopefully eventually we'll find out what or where the gremlins are in this system. I mean, this is a 25-year-old design now. So God knows what it'd be like trying to fix a modern day car in another 20 years time. I think it'd be pretty much impossible. And while those connectors are just drying, I checked the battery, the resting state of the battery with the engine not running, and it shows about 12.6-ish volts, which I think is within range, and that sounds okay, but you never quite know. But at least that would appear to be something like. So obviously what we need to do is, when the batteries are connected, we'll check from post to post, and then we'll also check from the connector, go off the connector with the leads on the tester, and then go on to the outside of that. And that, if there's a marked difference, then obviously these maybe have some corrosion in, but I have cleaned them, but you never quite know. And then there is a big contact, this goes off down there, so that's another thing we could also check. Right, next thing I'm going to do is dismantle and clean up the connections in this, the false bulkhead connector. This is a main feed between many heavy duty things, including the alternator and indeed the starter motor. Now I think this is probably permanently live, so obviously battery is disconnected. We'll just double check that, because you can never check too many times. Yeah. So as long as it's not connected, we should be alright. Okay, well, everything reconnected. Time for another test drive, I think. Right, so we're back home again. Just have a quick look on here just to see if there's anything going on. I did stop and check diagnostics. I've not had any error messages on. I've done about 11 miles. I've not had any errors pop up. So I'll just go through the motions with this and see what it's showing. When I checked, even though there's nothing on the dash, I did get a what was it? P1794, which is battery supply malfunction. So I still think there's a bit of work to do around the battery area, but anyway, I'll have a quick look on here and just see if it brings anything up. Okay, nothing showing on either the engine control module or the transmission control module. I appreciate this may not be fascinating viewing, but as much as anything I'm just doing this just to record it for my own purposes, but hopefully if you're in the same boat you may find just some of the information of interest diagnosing problems with these XJ8s. So I think all I can do now is just keep doing more testing and see if it's settled down now I've cleaned all those connectors up, or whether there's still a problem somewhere. Anyway, it's time for lunch. Okay, so where are we up to with the oldie Jaguar sat behind me? Well, like I say, yesterday I had a successful run out and no error codes, and that was following cleaning up, using the contact cleaner, cleaning up just some of the connections under the bonnet, some of the really important ones, and it appears to work. Apart from, we got that P1794 error code, mentioned something about a battery supply malfunction, and in the back of my mind I've been thinking that even though both batteries that I've used on the car have worked and they fire it up and everything seems to work, after a few years they can just start to degrade a little bit. And I think sometimes when you're sort of diagnosing and chasing problems like this, you have to start from a known good basis. You have to have the fundamentals really good, hence changing the alternator, and then you sort of work back from there and try and figure out what's going on. So I've actually ordered a brand new battery for it, and hopefully that will come tomorrow, all being well. I don't know if they deliver on a Saturday, but fingers crossed they will. The original spec battery apparently is about 75 amp hours, but the one I've ordered is 100 amp hours, so that should just give it a little bit, well, quite a significant amount more oomph, especially in cold weather, just to hopefully make it, just try and add in and do as many things as possible just to make it as reliable as possible. So we'll fit the new battery, make sure it's charged up, and of course, like I said before, we've had a few false dawns before with fully charged batteries, giving the impression that everything was working right, only next time for something to go wrong. So we will fit the new battery, that is the plan, and then I'll take it on a number of runs out, again with the lights on, that kind of thing, just to put it under a bit more load. And I reckon if we can get several successful runs out in series without any problems, without any error codes, that kind of thing, then we may just be on the right track. But obviously I'm not counting my chickens just yet, but I think as we've got a new alternator on, if we put a new battery on as well, then that can't harm at all. That can only help things, and especially as I'd like this to be a bit of a long-term regular user. The more new parts you put on, especially if they're upgraded or slightly higher spec than even was fitted originally, that can only be a pretty good thing, I think. So I'll report back once the new battery is here and been fitted just here in the boot of the XJ8. Well folks, a few days have passed and today a particularly weighty delivery arrived by van in the shape of this box here containing a fairly gigantic battery, a particularly heavy 100 amp battery. So this will be going in this just as soon as I've given it just a bit of a charge up. I mean, the little green light is on saying it is fully charged, but I can't see any harm just giving it a little boost just in case it's been sat for a little while. And then really it's just a case of using it a bit. I'll put the battery on and see if the combination of the new alternator, the new belt of course as well, big shiny new battery, and indeed the earth lead that I added just a little while ago, see if the combination of things has just made it just a little bit more usable, and hopefully try and eradicate the error codes that flash up from time to time on the dashboard. So I think as far as this video goes, I think we are probably pretty much done, and I will of course report back in a future video to let you know just how the car is running with this big shiny new battery fitted to it. So thank you so much for watching this one. If you're interested in these old Jaguar XJ8s or old Jaguars, old British cars in general, please think about subbing to the channel if you haven't already. Maybe give this one a like, leave a comment. Especially interested to hear from anyone else that's running one of these cars or has run one in the past. So yeah, thanks again, and there'll be many more videos along very soon. So bye for now.